Before we get started, just a quick note, spoiler alert.
And we are adults, and I will try very hard not to use adult language, but this is the warning.
Let me drink my coffee before.
Girl, it is 7:13. What are you doing drinking coffee?
I know, but I'm tired. I need to wake up. Oh my gosh, I keep forgetting it's not Fry Bites anymore.
I know.
Wait, what am I supposed to say?
Yeah, I was like, I don't have your part written down.
Okay, here we go. I'm professional. I can do this. Hello and welcome to Last Library on the Left. My name is Jennifer.
And I'm Sadina. We're a horror review and discussion podcast where we talk about horror in books, movies, and other formats, why we seek it out, and why we need it in our lives.
And today we're taking a break from hard horror and we're going comedy route.
We're taking a break for the rest of the year. The rest of the year is comedy horror, guys, because October was good, but it was heavy.
It was so heavy. So we're recording this probably a couple days late recording, but I think it's just like, I'm just so tired from the 31 days.
I was tired from editing and staying up late and da-da-da, but I think you're tired because I feel like you had a character arc.
Yeah. It was a lot of emotional stuff. It was like, you know what? No. So in between sleeping and watching Vampire Diaries, my brain was on autopilot. So now we're getting back into it, which is nice. So we said we're not doing the heavy stuff. We're talking today about Little Nicky and Little Evil, both comedy horrors. Okay, so I had Little Nicky on DVD, so that's how I watched it.
Nice.
But I think it's available on Amazon Prime.
Yes.
And Little Evil is available on Netflix. So we're going to go chronologically and talk about Little Nicky first and then go into Little Evil. So here's all the stuff for Little Nicky. It was released in 2000. It was written by Adam Sandler, Tim Herlihy, and Stephen Brill, and directed by Stephen Brill. It stars, and this is going to take 10 years. So it stars Adam Sandler as Nicky, Rodney Dangerfield as Lucifer, Harvey Keitel as Nicky's dad / the devil, Patricia Arquette as Valerie, Robert Smigel as Beefy, and then we have Tom Lister Jr. as Cassius, Reese Ifans as Adrian. And that doesn't even touch the ice of all the superstars that are in here.
Yeah, the gatekeeper was a really famous actor.
We have Dana Carvey, Quentin Tarantino, Rob Schneider, John Lovitz, Reese Witherspoon, John Witherspoon, George Wallace, Henry Winkler, Regis Philbin, Dan Marino, Carl Weathers, Bill Walton, and the Harlem Globetrotters.
Can we talk about how Henry Winkler didn't even have a speaking line, which I found to be very shocking?
Yeah.
I was like, but he's the Fonz. And even though I never watched it, I know him as the Fonz.
Right.
And you had Henry, maybe it was because he cost too much to give him a speaking role.
Maybe so, because, okay, so when I looked on IMDb to get all this stuff, he's there as one of the top credits, but Carl Weathers, who has speaking lines, because Carl Weathers is the dance coach in Heaven, he was uncredited in IMDb. And I was like,
what?
I know.
Whoa. That
he cost so much.
Huh.
I mean, he was coming off of The Scream, his second bout of fame. I feel like he was in a couple other movies around that time, so I don't know. So just a quick summary. After 2 of the devil's 3 sons escape to Earth, the devil sends Nicky to bring them back. And
so Nicky has to bring them back because when they went to Earth, they messed up the fires to hell, and then the devil started to disintegrate. You know, though, I guess I forgot the whole reveal or whatever about what Nicky was, but I was like, wait, if Nicky goes through and it's like, why doesn't he affect the fires the same way? And then like it got revealed later, and I was like, oh, duh.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, why? So this Nicky character, he seems like he's grown up just like his brothers, but he's good. And I was just like, well, why? Why? And like you said, when it's revealed, you're like, oh, okay.
Which, even though I've seen the movie a couple times, I totally forgot that. It wasn't until Reese Witherspoon was on the screen and I was like, oh, right.
Yeah, so I hadn't watched it since it came out on DVD. I just forgot this movie completely. And I was like, why did I buy this? And then I was like, I think it was just because Adam Sandler was in his fame. And I just love all of Adam Sandler's movies. So I have all of his movies. And I mean, not to discount this one, because it was so funny. It was so cute. But I was just like, what was I thinking? I don't know.
I was not a big fan of Adam Sandler growing up. I actually would say that this movie and Big Daddy were probably the only 2 I really ever enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I really liked this one more than I remembered because there were times. So it opens up with this peeper and he's watching this woman get undressed. He was so grotesque in that he was even whining and dining himself. I was like, this is so gross. And then he falls out of the tree and dies and he goes straight to hell. And when his punishment, which was to be raped by a big bird, and he runs away screaming, I deserve this. I deserve this. And I was like, huh, so there's no misconception here.
I love Adam's takes on movies. One of the things that he does so well, I think, is he brings comedy to some kind of weird subjects, but I think he does it in a way that, like, let's talk about cancel culture. I feel like if he would have made a movie in any other way, this movie probably would have been canceled, as with probably a couple of his other ones, but he does it so well that you just can't help but laugh. I laughed so much in Little Nicky. There were just so many funny parts, like talking dog and his roommate. At one point, the roommate is getting mad at him for messing with his coke, and the roommate is just so oblivious to Nicky being a supernatural demon.
Yeah, I like that he was like, did you mess with my coke? Even though he saw it levitating, you're afraid that he took it out of the fridge and you ain't mad that he was levitating it?
Right. And then at one point, Nicky is wanted in the city of New York, and the roommate is just like, oh, gosh, it's not good. But still, I feel like that wasn't as upsetting as, oh, the Coke tastes like Pepsi. Now, what'd you do with it?
Yeah, the only other time he seemed super concerned with the setup was when he heard Nicky sleeping. And when he sleeps, he like has the demon growl through his snores. And he was just kind of watching and he was like, oh, this is not good.
No, but he let him stay.
It makes me wonder if that was kind of a shout out to New York in the 90s because, you know, especially Manhattan got really bougie in the last 10, 20 years or whatever. But it was known for being kind of a cesspool, which is why the portal to hell is actually at 42nd and Grand Central.
Speaking of which, so there are a couple things that I saw. One of the things is that Adam Sandler, if you're not familiar with any of his movies, he has a lot of the same core actors that are in there and they're playing different roles. So I really appreciate that because I love the guys that were Peter and John.
Yes. They may have been my favorite part of the movie. They were so good.
They were so good. And I felt like they were making fun of these fangirls of serial killers. I was like, I feel that's what he's poking fun at.
See, I just thought of them as like basic metalheads. One of my sisters is a big old metalhead. That is how most of her friends act. And like maybe take away the surfer California speak and trade it in with the southern redneck speak. And that's her friends. And it's like, these people are just, girl, I can't, okay, the Ozzy Osbourne record and playing it backwards. And he was like, nah, man, Ozzy's always straight up about what he was. He was like, we'll put on Chicago. And I was reminded of stories that my sister told me about our dad and how he would play certain records backwards. And I was like, that is some metalhead bullshit right there.
Oh my gosh, because there's it's a Pink Floyd record, I think, that you're supposed to play backwards. I've never subscribed to that because I don't want to know. But I was like, that is so funny and so spot on. Because what if it was like a Michael Bolton, like send subliminal messages? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is the way he explained it. I was like, that tracks. Why would they put the ones that are very clearly the problematic ones or whatever, according to fundamentalists? You would put it in the ones that all the fundamentalists listen to because you want to corrupt the fundamentalists, right?
I loved it so much. It's so funny. And then when they went to watch the Harlem Globetrotters, and that one family, the mom's like, it's always crazy. Like, I love it. It was so boring, and now it's just the best because you never know what they're gonna do. It's part of the show.
Did you ever get to see the Harlem Globetrotters in person?
No.
Girl, I got to see them once.
Yeah.
Many, many years ago, my mom was dating this guy and he had tickets. And I was watching it. I was like, okay, yes, it is kind of absurd and kind of fun. I was like, but there is a moment, lady, where you have to be like, this is not part of the show anymore.
Yeah, I was like, it's so funny. I was just like, she's so bought in. Hook, line, and sinker.
Oh yeah, she's all for it. Just real quick, I just want to say that one of my favorite, so like there's, you know, the A story and the B story and the C story. My favorite background story was actually the developing romantic relationship between the gatekeeper and the weird hairy demon.
Oh my god, yes.
I was like, y'all got together real fast.
I was like, wait a minute, why do they keep showing them? And then I was like, oh. I love that.
I also love that he's wearing a different bra in each scene.
It's so funny. I was like, wait, could this get any more ridiculous? And then those two would come on screen with a different bra.
Also, I gotta say, for the 90s, those prosthetic boobs, I was like, huh,
They were
those are like,
decent.
yeah. I was like, okay, I can believe it.
Yeah, I mean, I can believe it too. I think they did a good job.
Also, I want to say I'm jealous that because they're up on top of his head, they're gonna stay perky. Like, I was kind of jealous. And I never had that thought the first time watching it. But I was watching the prosthetics and I was like, and he never has to worry about gravity or nothing.
The only thing that I wrote, I literally have nothing written down except all the celebrities. So they showed in one background, there is a view of the restaurant. And that's when I think people are starting to notice him on the street that he's a wanted man. And it's called Tom's Restaurant, which is also the sign that was featured in Seinfeld for the restaurant.
Huh.
And I've been to that restaurant. It's a Greek restaurant and it's good. And so I saw it towards the end. He's at a florist shop. And in the background, it says Tom's Restaurant. Is a blue banner, pink lighting, which is, I think, is supposed to be red. That's a real restaurant, and that's a good restaurant. I got a little bit of nostalgia because one year I went to New York and I ate my way through like popular eateries that were on shows. That was one of them.
Nice.
So, but I did write that Nicky was raised like those feral kids. Have you heard of that? Feral kids?
Uh-huh.
So he's kind of raised like a feral kid, and he came out great.
Yeah, because at first it felt like his dad was coddling him. It felt like he had purposefully raised him differently from the other two. But it didn't feel like he was grooming him for the throne.
No.
And then spoiler guys, it turns out that Nicky is half devil and half angel, and his mom is just some angel from heaven, which is Reese Witherspoon. I totally forgot she was in that too.
I know, I was like, wait a minute, how did I forget that she was in there? But you know what? There are so many celebrities that I wouldn't have remembered. The preacher that was like, the end days are coming. I was like, I didn't realize that was Quentin Tarantino.
Me neither. It wasn't until his name come up in the credits and I was like, who the oh right.
What? Why are all these celebrities here?
When he fell down the subway, that may be one of my favorite scenes.
See, and one of my favorite scenes, it was when they were all high and they were in the room. What was he pretending to do? I can't even remember now.
Twisted his head around backwards.
I was like, that's so stupid.
Yeah, they were like, do it again, Nicky. And he just did the exorcist, turned his head all the way around. And they were like, bro, how does he do it?
And I love that he loved Popeye's fried chicken of all the fried chicken.
I mean, that is the best fried chicken. When he was like, oh, Popeye's. And I was like, man, I totally forgot that this was his jam. But yeah, Popeye's chicken, that's the one. Yeah. Although at first I started to wonder, did they choose Popeye's chicken because it's, Louisiana fried? And he kept saying, where are you from? I'm from the South.
The deep South.
Yeah, and I was like, wait, is that why they chose Popeye's chicken instead of KFC or something?
I mean, that makes sense. I was like, oh, they chose chicken because they couldn't do pizza because that would be like a real debate.
Oh, girl, you're right. They never could have done pizza.
No, they never could have.
Although that would have been funny.
That would have been hilarious because it got me like, I think halfway. And I was like, wait, why isn't his favorite food pizza? Because that would be one of the things that you try when you're in New York. I had like 10 different types of pizza when I was there.
Yeah, and you know what? The only time I saw pizza was when Adrian was eating a piece of pizza.
Yeah, which by the way, I love that peppermint schnapps was his.
But he was eating pizza and drinking peppermint schnapps out of the bottle, and I was like, no, thank you.
Yeah, that's like a pregnancy craving.
See, I was like, that is a college frat craving.
But also, why is it that they like peppermint? They're from the South. Why is it that he likes a cooling type drink? Why is Nicky always in a sweater?
That's a good point, though, about the cooling peppermint, because, yeah, they had to wear foil in church to keep from touching holy ground, but they were also standing on a griddle when they were making the announcement as the mayor. And Nicky slept on a radiator. I liked all the small things to show that they needed someplace to be hot because they were used to it being hot. And also how Adrian knew that he was possessing one of the two metalheads because one of them was sweating and the other one wasn't.
Because I kept wondering, I was like, why are they zooming in on this guy? I don't want to see his sweat. And
yeah. See, I thought it was lying sweat at first. I was like, are they showing that he's sweating buckets because he's lying?
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I was like, I don't want to see his sweat. Like, that's just bleh. And then afterwards, okay, I get it now. I've watched this movie a couple times. I'm sorry, I'm so stupid.
No, I think that it's because, this movie came out 21 years ago, almost 22 years ago. We were much younger when the movie came out. You bought it when it first came on DVD, which I don't think there were DVDs in 2000, were there? They were, I mean, they may have just been making VHS and DVD.
Yeah, maybe I had it on VHS. You know what? I might have had it on VHS and then rebought the DVD when I was switching over to DVDs.
Because VHS were
library at 2001, and we had a small collection of DVDs then.
Yeah, because they were still putting out big blockbusters. I remember still being in high school when big blockbusters were still coming out on VHS because they could still make the money on VHS.
Yeah, because I had Titanic on VHS, and that was a BS thing to buy.
Yeah, Titanic and this like mini series I got from NBC called The 10th Kingdom were like the only double VHSs I had.
I probably had it on VHS, and then when I made the switch over to DVDs, I have it now, which, wow, I really liked it to buy it again on DVD.
And you know what? That makes sense because I feel like even though there were a couple of things that kind of bugged me, like the way that they teased his roommate for being gay, but probably not gay, but in the whatever, that seemed a little phobic, just a little bit, but like not like mean, but also not nice. And I was like, that's a little problematic now. But overall, the movie was just dumb. It wasn't problematic.
Right.
It was just dumb.
It was so slapstick.
Right. This aged better than I expected it to, because I was going in expecting full cringe.
Yeah. Okay. When they started making fun of the roommate at the first time, I was like, oh, man, I'm going to have to bring this up. And I don't want to bring it up. And like you said, it wasn't as bad as some things that I watched now, and I'm like, ooh, that's not good. It wasn't overall so cringy, and it aged well.
Yeah, I had one thing to compare it to because I've begun to rewatch Frasier just in the background when I'm doing things. And every once in a while, Frasier will have something that's like transphobic. They seem so offhand and they're not said maliciously, but they're said and you're like, that's not something you should be saying. And I was like, and Little Nicky was made around the same time. And I was like, wow, it aged better than Frasier.
I know. Listen, I thought he was bad because some of his jokes are just like, I was fully prepped, like, oh gosh, we're gonna have some. Like, I suggested this movie. And I was like, no. Why did I do that? I'm glad that it wasn't as bad.
A couple other things I really enjoyed out of this, that Nicky growled in demonic voices when he slept, but Beefy was a small child ghost going la 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 la. And I was like, wow, that's an interesting choice.
And both so terrifying. I was like, oh, well, dude, I'm so scared.
Two other things I really liked about this, all the 90s rock nostalgia. They had Filter, Incubus, Deftones, Disturbed, and I was like, yes, thank you. I also kind of want to say that even though it was made pre 9/11, that having cops be shitty cops in New York City and also going into hell and doing shitty things was kind of impressive. That was a bold choice because people would not be pulling that shit now because they would never. And I was like, kind of respect the fact that I could look out in that crowd when hell was on earth and very clearly see cops in New York.
Yeah. I mean, he did a good job, I think, pushing the envelope even back then. And I didn't even catch the cop. I was just looking out for the next celebrity. Like, how many names am I going to write down now?
Well, and of course, we all know the Rob Schneider, you can do it. Every Adam Sandler movie that had to have been in it.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. I love Rob Schneider.
My final note is this was so bad, but it's still somehow funny.
You know what? After the 31 days, this is a perfect palate cleanser.
Yes.
I didn't have to think when I was watching it. Like, I enjoyed the hell out of it.
I'm gonna try not to be offended when you said I don't have to think, but okay.
Listen, we did 31 days. I needed to not think for a little bit.
All right.
The next one is Little Evil. It was released in 2017 by Netflix, which I didn't know. And it was written and directed by Eli Craig. And it stars Evangeline Lilly as Samantha, Adam Scott as Gary, Bridget Everett as Al, Owen Atlas as Lucas, Clancy Brown as the Reverend, Carla Gallo as Wendy, Donald Faison as Larry, Chris D'Elia as Wayne, Sally Field as Miss Shaylock, Tyler Labine as Carl, Kyle Bornheimer as Victor, and Brad Williams as Gossamel. And the summary is Gary has just married Samantha and believes her son to be the Antichrist.
I have a lot more notes on this one because even the first time I watched it in 2017, I was like, this is so good.
And it had some bad reviews online, and I was like, why? I thought it was cute.
Oh, haven't read any of the reviews. You know what though? If people are giving bad reviews, they are not digging deep enough into this movie because I have a lot to say.
Yeah, I mean, I only wrote down 3 things, and because I wanted to enjoy it, but I thought that this one was okay because we like to pick apart horror, and I was like, this one can definitely be picked apart very.
Mhm.
It definitely has a comedy because Adam Scott is in it, and I fully expected to laugh, and I did laugh. But like, there were a lot of things that you could pick apart and read about.
Because not only were there lots of things you could pull apart and pick apart to dissect and think about, but all of the references, all of the visual references. I mean, like him swinging on the swing set.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so good. The kid was very clearly dressed to look like the kid from The Omen.
Yeah, his hair was covering his face like it. Oh my
Yeah.
God. I didn't even think about any of, like, I saw them and I recognized them, but I didn't even put it together and like, let me write them down. I went parenthood ways.
Oh, see, I even have like the goat puppet was The Shining, the little finger or whatever, but we'll get to them. But there were a lot of callbacks to classic horror. This was such a good movie. Al, maybe one of my favorite characters.
Al was probably the shining star of the whole movie. Anytime Al came on screen, I was like, oh, hell yes.
Not only is there going to be some wild shit said, but it's going to be delivered so well.
When Gary was talking to Al, and Gary's like, yeah, I'm a stepfather, and Al's like, yeah, I'm a stepfather too, and Gary's just kind of looking at her like, huh? I was like, yes.
Yes, I know. And that's actually something I was like, you know what? Even though it's not that old, it's only 2017. 2017 was still a year after 45 was elected.
Yeah.
And to have this like very, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which means that they wrote it and they acted it during that run up and stuff. And I was like, that is bold to be putting this out there. I like it. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh man, I didn't even think about that because you're right. Oh my God.
You know, the news pandering to the end times with the priest or whatever, the reverend. I actually paused my screen to see what the news channel was, and they didn't label it as anything. I would have bet money it was Fox.
Okay, so the way that they made it look like, because they didn't do a logo, but they did some of the design, and it looks sort of like Fox News, and it's Adam Scott. So
yeah, I was like, I see what you did there.
Because you couldn't have told me that wasn't Fox News.
No, and that's why I had to pause it and go back to double check. My brain put a logo there because it is so convinced.
Yeah, mine did too. I could bet money on it that it was Fox News up there, or FX News, or Fox News, not a Fox. News or something. Like, I didn't realize what that's, or like, you know, change the O to something else. Fuchs News.
Just send that clip to Jerry
because I didn't realize what I said. I was just trying to put an O U in it.
Oh, that is gonna be such a good blooper. Oh, God. You found it hilarious, just like I did, where in our last episode, you were like, you spelled out SHIT, and you're like, I'm not going to curse anymore. And then, like, 2 minutes later, you said, okay. And I clearly bleeped it out.
I'm trying not to, okay?
I loved it.
Oh, so funny.
I loved the videographer from the wedding. That whole shtick was really good. When he first is on the phone talking to the videographer, he looks over and the homeless man just does this. He makes the shushing motion, and I just realized nobody could see what I was talking about. And then he did it again when they had that accident. When Gozamel was trying to kill the child, the old homeless man was in the road and he made the shushing motion again. And I was like, is he good? Like, is he telling people, or is he bad? Or like, what is he doing? Because he's clearly providing a message here.
Yeah.
At the very end, he was like, only the child can save us. And I was like, that sounds like some divine intervention shit right there.
Oh, yeah. Because he comes up, I mean, they make him seem like he is a bad homeless. Right, like that he deserves to be there for whatever reason. I say that because that is a typical stereotype of the homeless, and so he's put out there as a red herring, as a bad guy, and I was just like, what is he doing? It didn't dawn on me that was divine intervention, but obviously it was.
Look at my dumbass. You're all like, we didn't have to think about anything for these. And I've like got a page and a half of notes to because I'm dissecting the hell. Ugh, wrong with me. I made a note to look this up later and I totally forgot. But I feel like the Reverend's name, which was J.D. Gospel, I felt like there was a joke in there somewhere or like a reference to some classic horror movie. And I meant to look it up, but I totally forgot. So if anybody knows what that was in reference to, let me know. Because I was like, that feels like something. So on the one hand, I felt bad for Samantha as a caregiver because I was like, she's just trying to be there for her child. But also on the other hand, this boy has done some shit where you can't just be like, kids are kids.
Yeah, I wrote that down to like, she is legitimately every mom who's trying to ignore the bad behavior of their child. I mean, I do that too. I try not to believe that my child can misbehave, but she
So I have watched this movie a couple times since it came out, and it wasn't until this watching where I had to pause it because I was laughing so hard I couldn't see. But it occurred to me that Lucas is the son of Sam.
Oh, oh my gosh. Oh, that is money.
Right. I was like, how fucking long has this taken me to see this?
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. Why did no one say that in the movie though?
Because I feel like it was so obvious.
Right. I just feel like when Gary was in group, one of them would have mentioned it. That was a perfect one-liner for Al.
It was so good. I damn near died laughing. I like was doubled over on my couch laughing so hard because I couldn't believe that I had just come to me and I had to pause.
So rich. Completely missed it. So glad you caught it.
Oh, this was another classic horror movie reenactment was the Poltergeist with the static TV.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the group session because they were like, the mom is always going to side with the son. And I was like, yeah, the caregiver should 99% of the time choose their child over a spouse or other relation with very rare exceptions. And then I started to think about it and I was like, these exceptions are so rare that the only examples I can think of are fictionalized examples.
Yeah.
Because I'd be like, oh, like that time I read about, and I was like, oh, but in a book. And I'm like, okay, well, but that time I thought, wait, that was like on a news report in a movie.
Right. Or examples that I'm not related to, like Sugar Ramirez, the Night Stalker, because he did some crazy things when he was a kid. Like those types of characters.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not associated with them, so I wouldn't know. Huh, you're right.
Right?
Only fictional examples or examples that I'm not necessarily attached to. Huh.
Yeah, I liked that. I also love all the other stories the stepfathers are giving about their children acting out, trying to help normalize Lucas's behavior.
That one parent's like, I've got the little shit's backpack so we can all shit in it.
He brings it up at the end again, and I was like, after all this, you still want to shit in your stepson's backpack?
Come on.
But it made me think about, because you know, all these kids acting out in all these other households, and it made me think about how children can't express complex emotions because they don't have the life experiences or whatever behind them, which is why horror is important to experience in safe spaces in childhood. And it was like, because children can't internally process some trauma, and so they express it externally, but it can be misdiagnosed as acting out or ADHD or disruptive behavior, whatever it is in classes and schools, and then the kids are dismissed and then they just get worse.
Yeah, my daughter, I make it no secret that my daughter's dad is not in her life. And while I appreciate him not being in her life, because I feel like if he was in and out, that would create a whole another set of psychological trauma on her end. But with him not being there and with me choosing not to lie and say like he's dead, that's why you can't see him, she often acts out. And a lot of times when she acts out, if we like talk about it, eventually I get to the point where she's like, oh, I just like miss my dad. I want to talk to my dad. Why won't he come see me? It's so complex for her to understand. And she still hasn't grasped that our family unit is just our family unit. It doesn't have to have a father in it. And so totally see this because it's just that concept, even though I feel like she's old enough to understand it, she just can't understand it right now.
Well, not only could she not understand it, but she doesn't have the language to express to you with on her own. You said it takes a conversation between the two of you.
Yes.
And that's because she has to learn the language and the proper way of expressing it because they just don't have it.
Yeah, she doesn't have it. I literally have to kind of like pull it out of her. And so I have to go all the way around. I don't want to go first to that and be like, every reason why you misbehave is because of this, because it's usually something else. But let's figure out what it is. And then eventually I'll bring that up. And she was like, yes, that's why, and blah, blah, blah. And, then we talk about it. But yeah, because she doesn't have that. I mean, she's a smart kid. She just doesn't have, like you said, the language to be able to open up the conversation with me first.
And then, of course, back to the tropes that we saw coming up from classic horror, there was the twins from The Shining. And I had this like weird random kind of tangent that I tried working out in my notes, trying to figure out. So Samantha has had multiple relationships in an attempt to bring home a father figure for Lucas, and they've all failed, but they've all ended in death of the spouse except for one. And his name was Gabriel. I was like, huh.
Oh.
Yeah. I was like, that's interesting. And he was participating in self-flagellation. And I was like, there's something there.
Yeah.
And the self-flagellation scene set up too was actually very reminiscent of a horror movie that I couldn't name. And so
okay, I wasn't sure if it was I wasn't sure if it was Legion or a Keanu Reeves movie.
No, I think you're right. I think it was Legion, because Legion I wrote down and I was like, but why does that not feel right? But I think you're right. I think it's Legion.
I feel like Paul Bettany did some.
Yes, it was Paul Bettany.
Yeah.
Because I was like, it was Paul Bettany, but what movie was it? And I was like, Legion. And I was like, no. But if you think it was Legion too, The Da Vinci Code. It was in The Da Vinci Code when Paul Bettany was doing self-flagellation.
That's it. Okay. I know it was Paul Bettany.
Yes. Paul Bettany with his hair dyed.
Constantine was the other one I was thinking of, but it was not Constantine.
No, it was The Da Vinci Code, and it was when Paul Bettany had his hair bleached because I think he was supposed to be albino.
Yeah, I love Paul Bettany.
Right? And he is in Legion, but he's a main character in that.
Is he Gabriel? Oh my God. Now I gotta figure it out. Is he Gabriel? No, he's Michael.
And that's the thing too, is that I was like, is it important that his name was Gabriel? Because Michael is the one who is nicknamed the serpent something, because he like all the icons that show him with his foot on the neck of a serpent, which is supposed to be the devil. Can we also talk about how chill Samantha was when she was re-describing how she got pregnant with Lucas? I was like, you dumb mother. What is... Oh, she was every dumb virgin in every horror movie. I was like, you're just not blonde.
No, you're just not blonde. I was like, because she's like, you said you weren't going to judge. And I was like, listen, I'm judging you hard.
Also, she's in a 90 when she's retelling it. She was quintessential virgin turned mother of the Omen child.
Yes. Oh my God, she kind of frustrated me a lot. Really frustrating. I was just like,
I also think that Shylock, the lady that was played by Sally Fields, I think her name was a take on Shylock, and I feel like that was in reference to something. I know Shylock is in a Shakespearean play, but I think it was in reference to something else.
Oh yeah, probably.
So this is where I start to really appreciate, I mean, I love the movie, don't get me wrong, but Adam Scott's character gets to the point where he's like, this child is clearly evil. He was conceived in October, by the way. I did the math. If his birthday's in June, he was conceived in October.
I did not do the math. I was like, oh, okay, they're gonna make it 666. So I was just waiting for that.
He was conceived in October during a satanic ritual with, what would she call it? Warm red body paint.
Yeah, like that's blood.
Oh my God. Also, she was clearly raped, and I was like, I hate all of this.
Yeah,
and
casual about it too.
I was like, you're fucking, I mean, not victim shaming.
Oh
or
wait,
blaming
she didn't remember. She didn't remember.
She said she blacked out right after they poured the warm red paint on her.
Yeah. Girl, like, come on. You gotta be smarter than that.
She was like, yeah, they seemed really excited when they found out I was a virgin. And I was like, ugh.
Red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag.
And she's like, we all do crazy things when we're young. And I joined a cult. And I was like, that is not the same.
No. The crazy thing for me is staying out too late. God, I don't know. That was not on my radar of crazy. I'm sorry.
I mean, I was definitely wild in my 20s, but it ranged from having a child that was not mine to out drinking most of the people I went out with, to the point where they had alcohol poisoning more than once.
I lived a very tame life.
So Samantha is impregnated during a satanic ritual or some cult-like ritual. By the way, I came to a conclusion later into the movie that I don't think that was a satanic ritual. So I have this theory about doomsday cults because I think that doomsday cults are actually fundamentalist cults, which like I'll get into in a moment. But she gets impregnated. She just wants to find a good man, and Adam Scott's character is this child is evil, but everybody keeps telling him you have to kill the child, and he's like, I am not going to kill this child.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that as his character.
Yeah.
And when he finally kind of succumbs to the pressure and he decides he's going to try to kill the child, he takes him to a water park. And that whole day was just it was so good. It was so beautiful. Where this kid is like, he's a child. He can be a child.
So, okay, that was the only note I wrote. Well, actually, I was low-key afraid of the little goat puppet toy. So I have to mention that. But I wrote that from that point where they were in the water park, I was like, oh, this is not a horror. This is a movie about embracing parenthood and specifically step parenthood and giving the child a chance to be a child around you and being the safe person to allow them to be themselves so they know they can trust you as an adult. And I was like, so beautiful.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't understand how people could leave a bad review with this movie, because if you get to that point and you have that revelation of this is not a movie about an antichrist or whatever, this is a movie about learning to embrace being a caregiver to a child.
Yeah.
And a child in need.
Yeah. Because like it was at that point where Lucas started to talk to him. Okay, so they did try to do the horror and make it look like Damien. But when he's in there, he starts to lighten up. The hair goes away from his eyes magically and his face brightens up and there's no more shadows in his face and he's wearing light colored clothes. So it was just a complete transformation. And I was like, yeah, that's not a horror. I mean, it was technically a horror.
Yeah.
It's not a horror.
I know, when they're having their bonding moment where Gary was telling the child Lucas, you're just a child, you can be whoever you want to be, you don't have to be influenced by your parents, and especially if they're not good influences on him. And he was like, yeah, my dad's not a good influence on me. And he was like, wait, you've met your dad? And he was like, yeah, he talks to me through the static in the TV and my toys. And it was like that callback that this is still a horror movie technically.
Yeah, when he was like, he talks to me through the toys, I was like, oh gosh, now I got to get rid of all the toys in my house.
The water park scene is a truly beautiful moment. And if you don't appreciate what this movie's actual story is, you were not paying attention.
Yeah, I agree. Because like, I think that, listen, it could have easily just been a fun, happy-go-lucky film like Little Nicky was for me, which I still think Little Nicky taught you about blurring the lines between bad and good when it's necessary and not going overboard with it, because he did blur those lines. But this one was for adults, and it was for adults to realize quote unquote bad kids are not always quote unquote bad kids. They're just kids.
Yeah, and it showed that it's up to the caregiver to be a good influence, because one caregiver was the literal devil and a bad influence, but the other caregiver was too forgiving, too lenient. He buried Gary alive in the backyard, and she goes, that's it, time out. That is not the response.
And that's the opening scene.
Yeah.
I was like, that's true. Give it time out. Time out for burying somebody.
And he didn't lie, because she goes, where's Gary? And he points down. He has the shovel still in his hands. Yeah. That is some shit where you call the cops. That is not a timeout. That is the, sir, we are having a serious problem.
Right. Yes. This is where the cops come up and scare you a little bit. And then we go and get some like therapy.
Yes.
Because there's some deep rooted issues we got to work on, friend.
Yep. And then the stepdad too, because even though it wasn't until the stepdad or Gary was like, I tried. And it was like, okay, but you didn't actually try, because Sam was like, you didn't try. You drove him to school one time. You tried to have a conversation and you gave up. And I was like, that's not real parenting.
Yeah.
So I think that this I wanted to cry during the water park scene, because I was just like, this is very clear to me what this movie is actually about. But okay, so I don't know if y'all got enough trauma about me and my sister that I had custody of, but we are about to tell a mini story about me and my sister I had custody of. Okay, so when Lucas was talking about his father being a bad influence on him, it reminded me of a conversation that I had with my sister years after I had custody of her. My mom was still alive. I was actually at my mom's house, and my sister was in therapy. She was telling a story to her therapist, and her therapist therapist was like, wait, tell me that story again, but not in a way that makes your father sound like a hero or like rose colored. She was like, because I don't think you're telling the story the way you should be hearing it. So I told the story again, and she told me over the phone, and I threw up, and it was just terrible. But what sticks with me is that our father was toxic and emotionally manipulative to the point where he rewarded her bad behavior. And one of the ways he rewarded it was that he would tell her, "You're my good little soldier."
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
And I was like, I can't do this. And I was like, that's the devil to his child, the Lucas, you know, like, you're mine to do with what I want. You're my soldier on earth. It's like, I hate it.
God, that is horrible.
And then the last note I have is my little internal rant and deconstruction of the doomsday cult. I was like, because it just reminds me of how much I fear fundamentalism in any respect, because fundamentalists always seem to get bored with waiting for the end of the world. And so they decide that doing a little bit of evil in order to bring about the holy war is okay.
Yeah.
And that can be something as, in their eyes, benign as killing a child.
Yeah. Is that whole for the greater good situation,
which is so arrogant, because like, if theoretically there were going to be an end times holy war, whatever, why would you think that God needs you to be the one to start it?
right?
Like, that ain't on you. And because it's not your job, you're gonna go to hell for it if that's your belief. So like, why are you wasting? Girl, I just don't get it.
Yeah. So with a doomsday cult, which I think you're right, it was a doomsday cult, because I just feel like if it was any other type of cult, from my knowledge of cults, and I don't have a lot of it, it seems like there's the one figure that's a leader, and everyone else is kind of like, I don't want to say hidden, but they're kind of hidden. And when he walked into the church, they were all there, and they all seemed like they all had an important role in the cult. Like, there was no clear leader to me, and so I was like, I don't know if cult's the right word. Just a crazy religious group.
The only other thing, Al was a riot. Al was a fucking riot.
Yeah.
But all the ways that Al had ready off the top of her head on how to kill a child, I was like, Al, I think you have thought about this a little bit too much.
So I think Al was to the point of Gary until Al was named like the coach of the team. And I was like, no, forget everything I said. The kid's cool.
When they're in the bar and Al is like, wow, so they're the literal antichrist. It like makes me feel much better about my kid.
Wow, that's so comforting.
It was so good.
It was so funny. I love how the group came together as allies towards the end. I was just like,
yeah, the stepdads. And they kind of came off as awkward, not losers per se, but like they were clearly a little awkward because they were the stepdads.
Yeah, because listen, when Donald Faison came on, I was like, oh, this is about to hit a whole nother level of funny. And then like he didn't do much. I was like, wait, like, bro, like, you're not supposed to be mute like this. Like, you're supposed to do more. I expect more from you. Yeah, like, I watched Scrubs because of you. Like, come on, give me something. And it was so awkward. I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. It was so fun, but so endearing. I felt so warm and fuzzy afterwards. I was like, it's just so nice.
I know. That's such a great story. Such an interesting way to tell a story about parenting and embracing being a caregiver despite the ups and downs of child rearing. And such an interesting way to tell that story. And I loved every bit of it.
Me too. I loved it. It was so fun. It's one that I will watch again.
I was actually thinking about it yesterday. I was like, sometimes Netflix puts out their original stuff on DVD. And I was like, can I find this on DVD?
Right? This would be a good one to purchase.
And I remember I only watched it because I was going through a Parks and Rec phase. And so I was watching all the things Adam Scott was in.
All right, well, I guess that's it.
I hope you guys are liking The Breather because it's just comedy horror through the end of the year.
Yeah, just through the end of the year. Like, and we'll come back fresh in January.
Yeah, that's about the mental strain I can handle right now. And I still pulled apart Little Evil.
You sure did.
Yeah, why would we need real lives?
Don't know. It's not as if I don't have a mile-long list of to be read and to be watched to Not like I'm raising a child.
So I decided that I am going to post a wish list for Amazon of my to be read books for horror.
Oh.
Yes. And I'm like, guys, I never ask for any, because girl, I never get presents. Anyway, whatever. So like, look, I don't ever ask for anything. So if y'all want to give me something for my birthday, then I need some of these books.
Yeah, you also need a shelf for those books, ma'am.
We will not talk about that. That is so rude.
Yeah.
Why you gotta call me out like that?
Listen, when I first went to Sadina's house, which is for this podcast, I was like, wow, like she's literally got a library in her house, like books everywhere.
They're not even on the shelf anymore. They're like on top of each other.
Yeah, there's no room on her shelves for extra books, and she stacked them every which way. Yeah, you need to add a bookshelf in there too.
That's rude because I gotta need room for a bookshelf. I'm gonna still post that TBR list for buy. So thank you, ma'am.
You've got room in your kitchen. You don't use the stove.
Yeah. Except, girl, I did the math the other day and figured out how much wine I have. I have over 80 bottles of wine.
Oh my god.
So, yo, I'm a walking basic bitch. Like, I have more books than I have bookshelves, and I have more wine than I have kitchen space.
Gosh, it's insane.
And with that, we should go before you call me out more.
I mean, yeah. Let's do that. Bye, y'all.
If you liked listening to us ramble on about horror, subscribe to our podcast and tell your friends. And if you would like to follow us on social media, you can find us on Instagram or Facebook at LLOTL Podcast.
Check out our website by going to lastlibraryontheleft.com. Be sure to visit our About Us page to discover our 2 truths and a lie. Or, if you'd like to send us an email, you can reach us at somethingwicked@lastlibraryontheleft.com.